It's hard to hear, isn't it? I mean, really listen. When we need to listen, when we need something that is maybe, well, probably will change our lives. That's hard to listen for. Isaiah knew it, and that's why, as a teacher, as a prophet, he had those words that when one wants to learn, that disciple, then the ear has to be tuned. It has to be, the actual meaning of that word means it has to be carved out, allowing a new channel of clarity so we can listen for what we need to hear. The theme for this 6 weeks of Lent has been compassion, living compassion. And this morning, the theme is living compassion, listening for redemption. Now, how do you do that? Well, let's look at this story of Jesus riding into Jerusalem. He's been warning everybody, we're going to Jerusalem, we're going to Jerusalem. You know, we are headed to Jerusalem. He knows that all the forces that will always be against him, the other religionists, the high priests, and those of his own company. And of course, on that Last Supper that evening, he said, someone here is going to betray me. And everyone said, is it I? Is it I? Did I? But Johann Sebastian Bach, in his Matthew's Passion cantata, actually has the chorus sing, rather than is it I, he has the chorus sing, it is I. It is I. We're all in that at one time or another, aren't we? We all feel guilty. We all feel like, would I do that? Would I do that? And so in this redemption story that we're reading this morning, we journey through this entire week as Jesus teaches the people, as he talks, as he's present to all the different places of the stories. The people are all there. Many of the people who have heard him tell the parables and have been with him in miracles and healings. They're there. They're there for this great celebration. But then, in those excruciating days of trial, when he's standing before Pilate, he's silent. He's not teaching anymore. Now, no one can hear him unless they're still listening to those stories he told, unless they're still hearing the parables that changed their lives. Now, there's a Northwestern University professor, Dan McAdams, and for 2 decades he's had his class, all of his classes, do interviews with people. The point of these interviews is to find the redemption story in their own story. Because he has found, and he continues to prove it again and again in this research, that those who see their lives in terms of redemption are more well-adjusted psychologically, and they have greater peace and even happiness in their lives, because they can see that in the past they've overcome some obstacle. Perhaps it's a sorrow, the death of a parent at an early age, or perhaps it's poverty, or maybe it's just whatever adversity they have overcome. They have not only higher levels of happiness, but they also have shown in this research that McAdams has done that there's a strong association between having overcome adversity, seeing one's life in terms of a redemption story, and in concern for the next generations. Compassion. There's a link to compassion. This is what the Jesus story continues to teach us. Because even though we go through those moments of anxiety when we say, is it I? Am I doing this right? Am I enough? We also come into that moment when we observe Jesus in his silence. I know I have. I've been in times when I've understood why he didn't say a word, why he stood there and listened to the lies told about him and refused to step into those lies and become part of them by speaking. He simply remained silent. It seems like for days he remains silent. So much of this week, except when he's in prayer, are in silence. That might be a good way to observe this week. Allowing silence to suffuse us and to remember and to experience not only our thanksgivings, not only the things that we're overwhelmingly grateful for in this time, but also those ways that we have failed ourselves, that we have failed to give ourselves a little more room for failure and say, that's okay, my beloved. It's all right. Because that helps us say that to each other as well. But when did Jesus break this silence? You know when he broke the silence. On the cross. An unjustified death. A death that was said to be as a criminal. But no. He says those words on the cross. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. It's the gentleness of those words that are so devastating, isn't it? They strike us with such force because of the tenderness in them. It allows us to say to ourselves, even this Sunday, as we break the bread, as we pour the wine, as we sit with ourselves and say, I forgive you. You didn't know. You didn't know what you were doing. And then go forward, living our own redemption story, ready for resurrection and the appreciation and the clear-eyed enjoyment of new life. Yes, yes.